Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Waves have swept away vessels supporting a U.S.-built pier used to transfer aid to Gaza, according to the U.S. Central Command. The incident occurred during the transportation of humanitarian aid when the floating dock disconnected from a small boat tugging it. Two vessels anchored on the beach near the pier, while parts of the dock drifted towards Israel's Ashdod shore. Two more vessels beached near Ashkelon. No injuries have been reported, and recovery efforts are ongoing with assistance from the Israeli and U.S. navies. The $320 million floating pier, completed in mid-May, aims to provide aid to Gaza. The pier has faced criticism for being a complicated and costly alternative to fully opening land crossings to Gaza. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric reported that the World Food Programme has taken possession of 97 trucks since the dock became operational. Dujarric emphasized the need for massive aid to come through land routes.
Murphy's Law or self-fulfilling prophecy. Welcome back to Training Tuesday, and we're going to talk about Biden's disasters here on the Rob Maness Show on Worldview YouTube Live and X Spaces simulcast. Well, does Murphy's Law really exist, or are Joe Biden's disastrous decisions resulting in a self-fulfilling bad prophecy? Port Biden is washing away after less than 2 weeks in operation, and aid from the pier has been offloaded, but it's very unclear, and even confirmed a few days ago by the Department of Defense, whether any of that aid has reached actual Gazans in need, other than the Hamas forces that steal it to maintain their combat forces anyway. Geez, I wonder who predicted that fiasco. In other predictions, oh, wait a minute, no, really news, the U.S. Navy admiral in charge of their installation says that American Navy bases are seeing several attempts a week to penetrate security by foreign nationals. And on top of that, we're now seeing that a special operations personnel surveillance operations on their homes is going on in this country. Well, who could have predicted that when analyzing the Biden open border policy disaster? And discussing and analyzing all of this today with us is retired U.S. Navy commander, a regular contributor to the show, author, college professor, and former senior DHS official. Dr. Arrington, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Colonel, thanks for having me. I'm always excited to both hear and speak the truth with the audience. So I'm glad to be here. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I had a tough time getting through that monologue because I was trying not to laugh. I'm laughing, but this is serious business, Doc. The Navy's joint logistics over the shore capability is unique to the United States. No other country has perfected it. And it's not like this crowd that's operating this pier off the coast of Gaza hasn't been doing it recently either. I mean, this equipment was used in Haiti not too long ago when its port was destroyed for doing massive amounts of aid delivery and those kind of things down there. So, but one of the ships even caught on fire on its way over to the Mediterranean. And now we see this. Two of the Army vessels were grounded on the beach the other day. And then the latest report shows still pictures of the pier itself, the causeway in from the pier itself getting knocked around by the waves. Let's go ahead and show the JLOT's schematic there, just to remind our viewers, this is what the JLOT's pier looks like as it's connected to Gaza, the shore at Gaza. You've got a long causeway out there from the beach out to a larger pier and dock area with a ship anchoring it, so other larger vessels can come and bring cargo and offload it rapidly and then get it on trucks, and the trucks drive across that causeway and onto the shore. And then you've got other ships out in the ocean away from the pier itself that are picking up cargo and delivering it over to the docks and everything there. Dr. Arrington, we saw in the pictures there some actual boots on sand from Americans in that picture there, and that violates the no boots on the ground part of this mission, doesn't it?
It does, but I got to tell the audience that the Democrat Party does not really care about our Constitution unless it is helpful to their mission or goals. What they care about is their own political power. So they violate our Constitution pretty much on a daily basis. I don't know that the public really understands that, but they do. And what happened here was the high waves, which you can expect in that part of the world, swept away this section of the floating pier that was installed to help send aid to Gaza. And part of it, like the film said, the video said, washed ashore into a city in Israel called Ashdod. And but you have the Israeli Navy. They're currently helping to connect the separated parts. But at the end of the day here, I think this is unnecessary, putting our Americans, you said boots on the ground, it's unnecessary putting our people in harm's way, and it's costing the American people a whole bunch of money. Your own Senator Rick Wicker in Mississippi said the operation was a dangerous effort and, with marginal benefit. I agree with him. And, they said this thing cost $320 million. My sources tell me that's about $350 million, and that's just for the first month or two of this operation. As it goes longer and longer, the American taxpayers' dollars is going to be sent there unnecessarily. So what happened there is I'm starting to smell DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are hiring people put into extremely important positions in our military and across the country that are unqualified, Colonel. They are incompetent to perform the duties that they are asked to do. And it's happening every single day now because of Biden administration public policies.
Yeah, that's a good point. I suspect, though, that the staff officers and the staff that put the plans together that were briefed up the chain of command, and Cynical Publius, a retired Army officer that posts frequently, and we follow each other on it, actually laid out the conversation that was probably occurred at the major and lieutenant colonel or 04 and 05 level as they went up the chain of command, and they said, hey, General or Admiral, this is not going to work very well because this set of equipment needs less than a C state of 3 to operate safely and consistently 24/7. And quite often, as a matter of fact, regularly C state 3 or higher is what happens off the coast of Gaza. So they're making the leadership making these decisions is probably going, yeah, but the president said we're going to do it, so we're going to do it. And I bet that conversation happened all the way up the chain of command until they got to the final decision maker. Do you think?
Well, he did. And if you remember, during Biden's State of the Union speech back in March, that's when he pledged to establish this temporary pier in the Med Sea off of the coast of Gaza. Why? To increase the delivery of humanitarian aid to that territory as the Israeli versus Hamas war raged on. A problem with that is that delivery outside of Gaza it's not the issue. It's once it gets across the border, at which point the deliveries are attacked and ransacked by Hamas. And even if the stuff does make it to a warehouse, guess who's in charge of the warehouse? Hamas. So the aid is not getting to the people that it should be getting to. We should all have empathy for the civilians, and I do. We always have to make sure that we don't hurt the civilians, which happens in wartime. You know that. But the aid's not getting there because Hamas is stealing it, and that's what the video said. And you said that in your opening monologue. It's being used for Hamas and their soldiers.
Well, yeah, in every siege throughout history, the military force in charge of the castle steals all the resources and takes care of themselves, and it results in lots of civilians dying unnecessarily. Hamas is not going to act any better than so-called regular military forces. As a matter of fact, they're going to be worse because they're Islamist terrorists, and they don't give a damn about human life. As a matter of fact, they use these people as human shields, and that's unfortunate. because all they'd have to do to stop this mess is just surrender, unconditional surrender, Hamas. You can end it right now. Walk out, put your weapons down, and let those people go.
Well, I think it was May 9th when this pier was completed. And one problem is that we've got Navy destroyers and Navy air assets, probably Air Force guys too, that are being used or dedicated to secure this area from any sort of a drone attack. And what this does is pulling the assets that should be used elsewhere into this situation. And I don't think it's going to accomplish, again, what we said earlier, anything what Biden promised. It's just not going to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. But let's go over to the live audience, see if we've got any questions. Kat is back. Kat the Hammer's back as our host in our spaces today. Welcome back, Kat. You got anybody with a question over there?
I don't see any hands up, but I'll ask you guys both this, and I'm not trying to be simple about this, but with all the DEI in the military, do you guys ever see us going back to the way things once were, where we actually judge people by the merit, like by their ability? Do you think that we can are we capable of getting back there, or is it too far gone? I guess is what I'm asking.
You want me to go first? No, it's not too. It's not too far gone. But we have to get Biden out of the White House. We have to get. I just endorsed Trump a couple of days ago, so now I can say that out loud. But we got to get somebody in there that really cares about the United States of America, our original Constitution, and will do what's right for our country and our individual liberty. Right now, we have Marxists that are in control of the country. They have infiltrated everywhere into our society. They control Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not in control. No offense intended. He's a demented old man who he doesn't have the physical strength, or the mental acuity for the daily rigors of the job. He just doesn't. That's why you don't see him very often. He can't get out there and campaign. He can't get out there and give speeches to the American public unless he's drugged, like he was for that March State of the Union address. So the answer is yes, we can get back there, but it's going to be ugly. There's going to be riots. There's going to be DEI people. There's going to be transgender people that are complaining. I'm sorry, but we have to get back to where the United States was and is. We have to get back to greatness and not mediocrity. Now, I told you, I gave a lecture, and the Colonel was there last Tuesday, where I said, I don't even know what mediocrity is or where you go to find it. And then I teased him and said, maybe in the Air Force. But I think where you go to find mediocrity is in the halls of our Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives and the White House. These politicians are mediocrity.
Yeah, Doc, we're not sending our best is what Donald Trump said about Mexico not sending their best to here to infiltrate our southern border, and America's not sending its best each and every time to the halls of Congress. There are some, but not very many. And I'll be honest with you, here's what's going to happen. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs and every chief of staff and vice chief of staff officer in the services is going to have to be fired. All of the senior civilians in the senior executive service are going to have to be fired. All appointees are going to have to be fired on the spot when the next president takes the oath of office. And I'm talking about within the Department of Defense now. And every general and admiral is going to have to be forced to retire and then promote up and then promulgate the guidance down that there will be no DEI. Every position related to DEI will be unfunded. Every person will be retired or fired from their service and moved so that they can no longer indoctrinate forces with this Marxist craziness. And once that happens, then we promulgate new guidance that says you will focus on the combat mission. Anything that is not related to successfully completing your combat mission, put it on this list. Within a month, it will be defunded. You will not have to focus on it anymore. And then we'll get back to focusing on what? Finding and killing America's enemies when the Congress wants us to do that in defense of this nation. That's the only way it's going to happen. And it's going to be hard because they're going to scream and whine and cry. And President Trump's going to have some civilian appointees and military officers that have the guts and the courage to go ahead and get it done and be willing to just serve 3 or 4 months or 6 months so that this job gets done, and then let the next people come up and step into the breach and take their turn at it. We got to take our break, Doc. When we come back, We'll hear from the admiral in charge of all the Navy installations. We've got a security problem, and it's not in the Air Force. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show on Worldview YouTube and X Spaces simulcast live.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace Elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the Elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the Elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the Elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
On Jennifer's reporting, Chechens, Jordanians, some of them just crossed the border. What's going on?
Well, you know, this thing of our military bases getting penetrated by foreign nationals is happening more and more. You know, this is something we see probably 2 or 3 times a week, where we're stopping these folks at the gate. With
a week?
A week at least, and this is just Navy alone, where we're seeing folks try to come in, and usually the cover story is, and I'm a student, you know, I'm here, I'm an enthusiast, I want to see the ships, that type of thing. We have to turn them around. And typically we get NCIS involved with those, and we get biometrics when possible. But yes, there's been an uptick in that.
Do they have passports? Do they have?
A lot of times they have passports.
Papers?
They have papers, yes. But they're in no way, shape, or form authorized to be on our base. And it's really hard for us to tell the underlying motive for these type of cases.
Wow, that's stunning.
It is.
It's got to be a concern.
This is Russian, Chinese. It comes from all these different nations. We're seeing an uptick in it.
In addition to that, there's been some reporting on this over the last 6 months. You're getting 2 or 3 drones flying over military bases in America per week.
That is no question.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, live on Worldview Tube and X Spaces simulcast. It's Training Tuesday, and we're kind of going around the world here with Biden's disasters and asking the question, is this just Murphy's Law or self-fulfilling prophecy? Because his decision-making and his team is so crappy. And our guest today is retired U.S. Navy Commander Randy Arrington, a Ph.D. in political science, former DHS senior official, and that one surprised me. I was an installation commander twice, really, in the United States Air Force at the end of my career there, and we had exactly 1 out of 3 years, 1 attempted penetration of one of those bases, and there's a lot of classified operations going on at both the installations that I was in command of.
Well, the problem is that, and you can look at public records for this and do your research, DHS under Secretary Mayorkas, totally incompetent, and Joe Biden, they failed to properly vet individuals coming into the country, probably 10 million since the 3.5 years he's been in office. but they failed to vet individuals on the terrorist watch list or the terrorist screening database set. They're not doing that. So we got people coming in the country that are of military age, and right now they're not only trying to break into our military installations, but I think that video was cut off before it started to say that these illegal aliens, Marxists and Muslims, are not only attempting to break into our military installations, they are now actively, clandestinely conducting surveillance on the homes of U.S. Special Forces. So for me, that means they are setting up a major operation to try to take the United States out before we can have the time to react. And hopefully that won't happen, because we do have probably 300 million privately owned arms. That's one of the reasons why Japan didn't want to come into the United States during World War II, because they feared that. And, but if you got people that aren't afraid of dying, and the radical Muslims apparently aren't afraid of dying, they'll do whatever they have to become a martyr. So people need to wake up, Colonel, and stand up and aggressively fight back what's happening right now. There are terrorists in this country. They were let in by your president and your Secretary of Homeland Security. And they are, like you said, 2 or 3 times a week. You were out there in New Mexico. I used to fly on that base all the time. And you said you had one the entire time you were there. Now you're getting 2 or 3 of these military-age guys trying to break in. The last one, I think, was at Quantico. And they tried to break in. They were stopped by those barriers that they raised for the vehicles. But not only that, but 2 or 3 drones per week. We could be getting into a position where they want to use these drone swarms against the United States military. These Iranian one-way attack drones have been very, very deadly and successful, used by Iranian proxies and by Russia in that war against Ukraine. And this could happen to our military bases sooner or later, Colonel, inside the United States of America.
Well, yeah, I mean, weaponizing a first-person view drone like a DJI drone or any of the other ones you can get hold of is not that difficult. Google it. You can see how the Ukrainians are doing it in their garages. And Russia and Ukraine both have perfected the FPV drone attack using small bombs about the size of a 40-millimeter grenade out of an M203 grenade launcher for you military folks out there. That know what that is. It's a little bit less than the size of your fist. It comes in high explosive rounds, incendiary, tear gas, smoke, all kinds of things that you could use to disrupt and actually pull off a bombing mission if you really wanted to do it. It's not that hard to do. And if we don't have air defenses over these installations, I'm sure the Navy's following DOD guidance, just like my bases were following DOD guidance. So we're all using pretty much the same procedures, and these folks, they have to be probing and testing the entry procedures because,
exactly right.
Everybody's got an identification card now that's scanned by a remote device that's tied to a database. And if you're not in the database, then you have to go through an extensive identification process just to get into the gate. So it makes me wonder what they're really up to. Maybe they're just testing different guards, different shifts, and those kind of things. I don't know, but it looks pretty. It's pretty damning. My friend Sam Faddis, who's a former CIA operations officer, wrote an article this week that the United States government knows there's going to be a major attack within the country, and they're not saying anything about it. Why wouldn't they say something? Like you mentioned, we have 300 million privately owned firearms, and nearly every one of those people knows how to use their firearms, and that's what they're for, is to defend our homeland.
Colonel, when I was one of those senior directors in Homeland Security, especially after I got my doctorate, they would invite me to sit on panels and listen to people talk about their problems. And it really upset me because before the meeting started, we had these old senior guys in these suits and ties talking about, well, how do we lie to the American people in this particular group to get them to do and think what we want them to think. I always taught my students, don't let people tell you what to think. Do your own research and find out what the real truth is on your own. Make your decision based on that. But I was in meetings like that. I don't know if they did that in the Air Force. I don't remember that in the Navy. But in a civilian government, how do we lie to the people to get them to do what we want to do? And you mentioned earlier, in answer to Kat's question, what do we do to solve this problem, this DEI Marxist problem in our military? And you mentioned the admirals and generals, and then you mentioned the SESs. I don't know if you saw this, but one of the SESs, Christine, I think her name is Warmoth, she is the Secretary of the Army, and she said this, Colonel. She claims that we should not be recruiting from military families for our military. She says that we risk developing a warrior class, a warrior class. Now, the Army is the smallest it's been since World War II, so why are we telling people from military families you're not wanted? That's exactly what she said. For me, no offense intended, I think this Army Secretary is a moron, and we do need a warrior class to serve in our military. My oldest son was an officer in the Army. He did it for 10 years. He went to Afghanistan and Iraq, and he was an EOD officer in the 101st Airborne. Now he's an attorney up there in Nashville, but he did his 10 years, and you have sons that are military, if I'm not mistaken, but the Biden administration appoints these fools, again, because they want to foment chaos and then anarchy in our society amongst our people, and then that is a prelude for we have the solution to the chaos. It's a communist revolution. And I mentioned this at that speech I gave in Biloxi. If you support communist public policies, whether you know it or not, you are a communist. At the best, you are a useful idiot. And Colonel, you know what happens to the useful idiots when a new regime that is communist takes over? The useful idiots are the first among those to be executed.
Oh yeah, absolutely right. I think they're fascists myself. Fascism is a combination between government and private entities, and results in the ultimate tyranny. And they kill their useful idiots too. That's what Hitler did with his brown shirts immediately once he took power in the government. We got some questions over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take some hands there. Kat, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, America.
Hi, thank you so much. I think you said earlier you were going to get to the Chechen thing in North Carolina. So I'm interested because I'm in North Carolina, so I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that situation. But you were talking about the breaches of our bases and how all of a sudden we're hearing that there's been a lot more than they had told us about. Well, I just want to tell y'all, my daughter's boyfriend took her up to Virginia a few weeks ago near Virginia Beach for a conference for her school. And so he couldn't attend the conference, so he decided he's going to drive around, just kind of sightsee. He ended up on a base, like inside the base. And next thing you know, he's surrounded. So I think we also need to be aware it's not just these illegals and stuff and that we're hearing about. You got stuff like that happens with our own people. How many of our own people that are not necessarily good, like my daughter's boyfriend, are ending up on these bases that we don't know about? So I just wanted to throw that out there to you guys.
That's a good point, Doc.
Well, people from Chechnya, the Chechens, are probably, most likely, we haven't been told this yet, radical Muslims. And radical Muslims, their whole goal in life is to kill every Jew on the planet. And second, the big Satan, that's the little Satan. The big Satan is the United States of America with our Christianity. They hate that. They want to inflict their particular brand of tyranny on every individual on earth. And that's what Marxists want to do as well. I gave a lecture once where I taught my students that there are eerily similar ideologies between things in the ideology between Marxism and the Muslims. And they want to inflict their brand of tyranny on you and prevent you from living your life and kowtowing to what they want you to do. Now, as far as I have people call me all the time, what should I do, Doc? How should I behave? My answer is just go ahead and be extra vigilant with you and your family, but don't let the bad guys, these radicals, change your lifestyle and make you do things you wouldn't normally do or think things you wouldn't normally think. Continue to live your life, be vigilant, take care of your family, yourself, your community, but continue to live your life like you normally do. That's the best advice I have to give to anybody out there that was wondering, what do I do because of what's happening in the country? Just live your life like you normally do. Be extra vigilant. What do you think about that, Colonel?
Oh, I agree. To get to the caller's point about mistakenly entering bases and those kind of things by regular people, regular Americans that aren't foreign nationals. That does happen. Not very frequently, but it does happen. At one of the installations that I was a commander of, we had an individual. He actually ran the gate, even with all of the barriers that we have and all of the ability to stop somebody at the gate. The guy ran the gate because he got confused at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was high on pot. And what he was actually doing is when he realized he was at a gate, he decided he'd run it and try to get away, not realizing he was going into a base. And they ended up throwing the spike strips out in front of his car, blowing his tires. But he still almost got to a high priority target, not intentionally, but he was trying to get away because when we searched the car, he had several hundred pounds of marijuana that he was transporting for sale in the city of Omaha is where this happened at. But that does happen. And he looked exactly, smelled, acted just like a bad guy. But what the Admiral was talking about in that first clip there was foreign nationals attempting penetration of the security of the installation. That's totally different, and you should be paying attention. We got to take another break. When we come back, we'll hear Jennifer Griffin's report on the Special Operations Forces colonel and his encounter with two Chechens, supposedly as utility workers, at dark 30 in the morning, and it didn't turn out very well for one of them. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show at Worldview YouTube.
I'm excited to announce we're having a huge MyPillow spring sale, and here's a few examples. Buy one of our MyPillow 2.0s, you get another MyPillow 2.0 absolutely free. Made with cooling technology, the best pillow ever just got even better. And this just in, 9 brand new colors and styles of our Percale bed sheets. They're made with the finest long staple cotton, and now you can save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98. And for the first time this year, I'm bringing you our My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your MyPillow 2.0s. Buy one, get one free. Percale sheets as low as $24.98. My Slippers and Sandals as low as $25 a pair. And for a limited time, when you order $75 or more, your entire order ships absolutely free.
Security concerns near major U.S. installations. One incident involving some of the nation's most elite warriors remains perplexing. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is again at the Pentagon tonight with this. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Brett. New developments tonight in the mysterious shooting in Carthage, North Carolina, outside a U.S. Army Special Forces residence, involving an elite U.S. soldier and 2 Chechen males who immigrated from Russia. At least one lived in Chicago, but neither name so far appear in any national databases, and I'm told both were here illegally. We've now learned that the phones collected at the scene have been taken to an Army base for analysis. To recap briefly, on Friday, May 3rd at 8:15 p.m., an Army colonel reported an altercation with a possible trespasser near his home. The individual was reportedly taking photos near the colonel's home with a telephoto lens under a power line in a wooded area. A fight ensued, shots were fired, and the alleged trespasser died. Quote, upon arrival, deputies discovered the body of 35-year-old Ramzan Daryev from Chicago, Illinois, who appeared to have sustained gunshot wounds. Daryev was reported to have been working as a subcontractor for Utilities One, a company based in New Jersey, at the time of his death. Investigators are still working to verify his employment status. At the time of the incident, Daryev was not in possession of any utility equipment, utility clothing, or identification.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. It's Training Tuesday, and that's one of the issues that we're talking with retired U.S. Navy Commander and political science professor Dr. Randy Arrington about. And we wanted to go into this a little bit, Dr. Arrington, because this is very unusual. Number one, that the incident's being reported in any mainstream media. Number two, if Jennifer Griffin's gotten it, then she is speaking the words of the government. So everything she just said has been released by the Department of Defense through her. That's her modus operandi, and you just have to understand that when you're listening to that reporting. But the interesting thing about this is that normally there would be a bunch of hand wringing. Oh, this guy's going to get arrested, the shooter. You know, this guy's going to be arrested. He's a white guy, whatever. You shouldn't have shot him. You're getting none of that this time. You're getting very factual reporting, which is good. That's what needs to happen every time in the press in the United States of America, folks. Do you guys hear that, you propagandists out there working for the U.S. government, you corporatists? You need to do reporting like that. Put the facts out. But the other thing that's interesting about this is I was in the utility business for a couple of years as a director of safety and training over people like these two guys, you know, linemen, folks that would go out and do engineering assessments, et cetera. And for these individuals not to be wearing any utility clothing, not to have it like a safety vest on, a reflective vest. I think it's probably pretty close to dark out there at that time of night. You know, not identify themselves to property owners before they go out on private property. All highly unusual from the reporting to the incident themselves. Your thoughts?
Well, going back to what was said earlier, that the first thing the government does is how do we lie? How do we spin this to get the reaction that we want and need out of the public, to keep them under control and manipulate their thought process and their behavior? The government always asks that. But there are instances where it's so obvious you can't lie about it, you can't spin it. It's going to come out, or it's already been seen by other people. So they can't spin it. They have to let it out a little by little. Now, going back to what the lady said earlier, we have people that not only try to get onto our bases illegally, we have people on our bases that are there. They're invited to be there. They're there legally. One case happened at NAS Pensacola, Naval Air Station Pensacola, where they had I think it was a Saudi national who was there for training. And he was invited to be on base. Well, he killed a bunch of people. And they had to shut down NAS Pensacola for a long period of time. The other was that major, I can't think of his name right now, that I think he was a psychologist. And he was a Muslim, killed a whole bunch of people. I think they were Army people. He was in our military. So you've got spies in every sector of our society who are just waiting for the opportune moment to inflict their terror on the public, because that's what they're put there to do. And I'm not saying the Saudis knew this. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But this happens all the time. We have to be extra vigilant. Live your life like you normally do, but be extra vigilant. Take care of yourself, your family, and your community. But realize there are people out there, he could be standing right next to you, and he's just waiting for the opportune moment to turn on you and the people around you and murder you, because that's what he has intended to do from the very beginning since he got this country, Colonel.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I would just add to that, you know, we have the Second Amendment in this country, and you hear me say it all the time: buy guns, buy more ammo, train with it, know what you're going to do. This Special Forces colonel was just out at his house, away from Fort Bragg. I'm not even going to call it by its renamed name, because I don't believe in the renaming commission. I think they're illegal. So he's out at his own home, away from Fort Bragg, and he was ready as an American. Because believe me, the colonels, we don't walk around necessarily going armed to the teeth in our everyday civilian clothes at our houses. but obviously something got his attention, and he was ready to deal with whatever it was he encountered out there. And I agree with you on the Chechens. There's no telling whether these are guys from the Russian government or if they're Islamists, because the Chechens go both ways, so to speak, in that part of the world. And we've had hundreds of thousands of people come through the southern border since Joe Biden took office, most of them military-age Chinese males. And you heard the first clip we played talk about Chinese males trying to penetrate the bases and the gates also when the Navy Admiral was speaking. We've got a hand up over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take a question. Kat, who's up?
AJ, go ahead.
Thank you for the mic, Kat. Dr. Anton, it's a pleasure to hear your voice, sir. Thank you, Colonel Maness. There was a time that I was not in the United States and I was not an American citizen. Based on those experiences, I can tell you that American installations, both federal or military, have a tendency to appear very intimidating for a variety of reasons. I will not go into because we don't have the time. My point is this. These attacks or attempts of infiltration that are taking place upon our installations domestically must be managed. This isn't a bunch of people in random times getting into vehicles and saying that, hey, can I just see if I can infiltrate. In the countries that these people come from, this is impossible. Most of the time, they get shot before they ask any questions. So it is my opinion that this is being, managed domestically. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Anton? Thank you for the mic.
Well, I got to tell you, I think it's time for Americans of all political stripes to come together and be brutally honest with themselves and with each other, their fellow citizens. We, the people, must realize that Joe Biden and his administration has been severely compromised, most specifically by our enemy, China. And in my research, I've come to the conclusion that it seems like everything that they do is overwhelming evidence of treason. It's impossible for a presidential administration to make every public policy decision contrary to the American national security interest, your individual interests and mine. It's impossible to do that without other players influencing. So then the question that I beg to ask everybody is the United States on the brink of collapse? My answer to that question is we, in our current political context, we are in a position where we are in jeopardy. Our nation's continued longevity as a free nation is in dire jeopardy. That's why I always say when I give lectures, stand up. First of all, you got to wake up sleeping giant, which I think is happening. The political pendulum is going from the left. It's starting to swing back hard, Colonel, to the right. So wake up, stand up, and then you have to aggressively fight for your country and your continued individual liberty, which is very important to you, obviously, but also to the nation. So that's what's happening right now. We have an administration that is committing treason. And if Joe Biden was sitting in front of me and Barack Obama, I'd tell them that to their face. What you are doing is treasonous. And, the left will call me a lunatic professor, but that's the absolute truth, Colonel.
Oh, I don't disagree with you at all. Look, Dave Smith at the Libertarian Party convention during an interview over the weekend talked about how the reason why he was with Donald Trump and was going to vote for him is because people in the United States government committed treason when they spied on his presidential campaign in 2015. They took it a step further and committed even worse treason when they produced the Russian hoax on him when he was a sitting United States president. That's what treason looks like. And to get to AJ's question directly, I believe that this is a systematic reconnaissance surveillance operation in preparation for at least one attack, probably a series of attacks, trying to create as many fatalities and casualties as gorily as they can and horrifically as they possibly can across the United States in preparation for some other major actors' bigger event outside of the country to achieve their goals. And we could go into that later of who I think it is. But after this break, Doc, I want to talk about the Libertarian Party National Convention, and we'll hear from Donald Trump and some of the things he said on the stage there, because he was invited to speak, and he had the guts to go do it, and I think that's great. Any American presidential candidate ought to do that. We'll be right back on Worldview Tube.
Experts say that Russian hackers found a way to hack our utilities, and the hackers may still be in there, waiting to strike.
Go after their power, go after their water, and you can bring a nation to its knees.
They're identifying targets, they're positioning malware so they could pull the trigger when they wanted to.
Experts see the intrusion as a possible precursor to an unprecedented Russian cyber attack that could, in the event of war, devastate the U.S.
We know that China has been hacking everything they can and stealing our intellectual property. They want to take down America's economy. They want to take down our morale. They understand that if they can destroy our economy, they can destroy our future. We're at war.
I'm not sure if the Colonel's staying after or not.
Glutathione, I'm so excited that we have a fantastic delivery system for it, because glutathione is the master detoxifier and master antioxidant. Glutathione's like oxygen, okay? You will die in 3 to 7 minutes if you don't get glutathione.
Wow.
And at 3 to 7 minutes. And we have a way now to get the whole glutathione in your cells in about 90 seconds without using a glutathione IV. It is the most important molecule in your body. Glutathione helps your brain, your liver. It performs 400 functions in your body. So the master, it will detox every heavy metal, every pesticide, every herbicide. It will detox spike protein from your body. It will detox graphene oxide. And it is the master detoxifier and antioxidant. So glutathione is needed every single day.
Numi.com/house1. Numi.com/house1.
The Libertarian Party should nominate Trump for President of the United States. Whoa. That's nice. That's nice. Only if you want to win. Only if you want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Thank you, D-Roy. Thank you. No, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that. Keep getting your 3% every 4 years.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast live. That was President Donald J. Trump, candidate Donald J. Trump at the Libertarian Party's National Convention over the weekend, and bringing that a little bit of that Bronx bomber in, and that New York aggressiveness. Yeah, don't nominate me. If you still want to lose and just get your 3% Libertarian Party, don't nominate me for your presidential candidate. And you know what? We're talking with political science professor and PhD in political science, Dr. Randy Arrington, today. And I couldn't pass this opportunity up, Doc, without at least doing one segment on Trump and the LPN National Convention there, because they ended up nominating a gay guy who supports trans surgeries on kids. That's who they ended up nominating. Even though when you look at the issues, and we'll cover them here after I give you a shot at this, that Trump goes down the line. You know, if I'm a Libertarian Party person, he's the best candidate in this race, quite honestly. Go ahead, Doc.
Right, and you've got RFK, and I've been telling people who will listen to me, both from my mouth and writing, that RFK is a Trojan horse. RFK just said the other day he agrees with having abortions to the 9th month, till the baby is born. I can't fathom that. And he doesn't think it's a state issue. It's a federal issue. No, it's not. It's a state issue. and Roe v. Wade should have never been codified by the Supreme Court. It is a state issue. Now, as far as the third party, the Libertarian Party, there's this thing that I teach my students. It's called Duverger's Law. Duverger's Law teaches us why in the United States, with our current electoral rules, you can never have a viable third party. Our electoral rules are single-member districts and plurality voting, meaning you don't have to get 50% plus one to win. Clinton didn't get 50% plus one to win. He got 48%, and the next time got 43%. So that's plurality voting. He had more votes than anybody else in the race. There was 3 people in the race that year. So you have Duverger's Law that's saying you will never have a viable third party. Libertarian, that Bernie Sanders is allegedly libertarian. No, he's not. He's a Democrat. But you can't have a viable third party. Now, I do see there are some good things that third parties bring to the campaign. They sometimes will force the major candidates from both the major parties to talk about issues they would rather avoid talking about. And if they're good enough to do that, that's good for the American people. I want to hear what you think about this particular issue that you would rather not talk about. So the third parties do have a function and a role in our country, but they will never, ever get a president elected or somebody that is really a libertarian, Bernie Sanders is not, into one of the offices in the Senate or the House. You can't do it with Duverger's Law and our current electoral rules. Proportional representation, like England, Great Britain, yes, you can have 4 or 5 different parties. And that's what you have there in those proportional, they call it PR. Those countries, those electoral rules, you can have a viable 3rd, 4th, 5th party.
Yeah, I agree with you on RFK. That's why he shifted from being a Democrat and part of the Democrat primary to an independent, because they want him to pull votes off of Donald J. Trump. But Trump was smart to go to this convention. No other Republican politician would try to pull it off and walk in there with guts and say, you need to nominate me as your party nominee. And here's why. Look, he said he was going to ban centralized digital currency. I'm all for that. I'm not a libertarian, but I'm a liberty-minded Republican is what I've been called. He said that he's going to keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons from stealing your Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And there's a lot of libertarians that are worried about their cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. He said that the fascists and communists within our own government are our biggest threat because they're trying to steal and crush your individual rights. That's right down the libertarian policy thing. And then he said he's going to commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, the guy that got like multiple life sentences for setting up the black market on the dark web, and probably shouldn't have even gone to prison for more than a year, if at all. He said he would pardon Julian Assange. These are all Libertarian Party policies, and they booed him. They're so stupid. They're a bunch of clowns, Doc. And then they nominate this Clay Oliver guy who's a wokey and a Marxist and a rainbow supremacist is what Clay Edwards from Jackson, Mississippi would call him. I had him on my show a couple of weeks ago. That's what he is, a rainbow supremacist. That guy's not a libertarian. He's a Marxist. What is wrong with these clowns? They tried to recruit me a couple of years ago over in another state to run for major office as a Libertarian Party candidate, and I could never get out of my mind's eye the fat guy on the stage a couple of years ago at their national convention stripping down to his Speedo on national television and think, you guys are a bunch of clowns, man. You don't deserve for serious Americans that are worried about this country to run under your banner. Am I wrong, Doc?
No, you're not. And I say this, I teach my students all the time. People who think they're incredibly intelligent, which these libertarians do, or highly enlightened, those people are extremely dangerous, Colonel, if they are ever given power and put into positions of authority over innocent individuals. Think back 50 years ago. Every 10 years, we have some new issue that comes before the American people that said, oh my God, the world is going to end in 10 years, whether that's the ozone layer, the new coming ice age, or the global pandemic, this is the COVID, or global warming. They changed the name to climate change now. They do that every 10 years. The Earth is not going to exist in 10 years. I think AOC said that. Bernie Sanders said that. 10 years from now, we're all going to be dead. Well, it's a bunch of crap. They're doing that to scare you. Fear is a tremendously powerful motivator and manipulator of human behavior. And they're doing it to scare you and to get more of your hard-earned dollars and take away more of your individual liberty. And we fought a revolutionary war because of a tea tax. They threw it in the Boston Harbor. You know, and so we got to realize that our government is not our friend, and they are doing things to perpetuate their individual lives and their power, not to help and solve problems for the people in the United States of America. I remember once I was on a dais. We're talking about when the Commerce Secretary Ron Brown, that airplane had crashed, and the families of the victims' families came in, and they wanted something to happen. And all the lawyers on the panel were saying, well, the Tort Claims Act says this, that, and the other. And they said, Dr. A, what do you think? I said, this whole room has a cerebral orbit above the problem. Let's bring it down to earth and solve these people's problems. They looked at me like I killed their mother, Colonel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Trump was smart because the swing states have enough Libertarian Party folks in them to make a difference. That's how close it's going to be. We got one last question over in our live audience. Let's go ahead over there with Kat and take that last question.
Okay, Jeff, real quick.
I just wanted to agree with the doctor and the Libertarian Party. The reason they'll lose is they'll bring up things that are ridiculous, like the 9-month abortion and so on and so forth, that things that they shouldn't even bring up. I think it's going to have a reverse effect on where it's going to take more votes from Biden and give more votes to Trump. So then that's a good thing, in my opinion. And I agree 100% with just about everything these guys are saying. And my question to the Colonel and the Doc is this. For the United States, not just the world, but for the United States, the CCP and Mexico and the southern border is our #1 emergency threat. And I'm wondering why the military and the politicians are not addressing this as a national security threat. Why are they just laying down? Because this is a terrible thing that's going on. And Mayorkas is aiding and abetting fentanyl and terrorists coming to this country. He is one of the worst criminals I've ever seen in government. And he lies. And I just want to know, why is it being put onto the back burner besides getting votes?
Good
well,
question.
It's being done on purpose. It's being done on purpose. The Biden administration is Marxist, and they want to have chaos and anarchy in society and then foment that communist revolution. So what's being done, it's not Mayorkas, it's the Biden administration telling him what to do. And what's happening right now is being done on purpose. They want to bring these people into the country so that we feel threatened by them, and then they can create the problem, then they can come forth with a solution to the problem. That happens all the time in government. And right now we are in deep trouble. I say that the United States, our continued longevity as a free nation is in great jeopardy, Colonel.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's why I'm a proud member of President Trump's campaign team's Veterans and Military Families Coalition, because he's the only candidate that has said it's a national security issue, and the internal threat caused in large part by all these Chinese military-age males, Chechens, Turks, Islamists, gang members, you name it, that have come through here are our biggest threat, and he treats it like a national security threat, and those of us that support him do too. Well, tomorrow we'll talk about that threat even more with Charles Marino about his new book, Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country. Thanks, Dr. Randy Arrington. We appreciate you coming on. We've had your information posted the entire show. You can find him on X and YouTube. By the way, he does some great videos, and we'll see you tomorrow on Whistleblower Wednesday, right here at Worldview 2.